Hey guys, if you're shopping for knives and gear, make sure you check out the description of the video you're watching right now for a link to my Amazon store where I've compiled some of the very best items available, including some of my own personal recommendations. Thanks!
What's going on, YouTube Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review slash knife overview to share with you guys. One that I'm very excited about and have been for a long time. This is the Arno Bernard Custom Orca. This is a wonderful, wonderful knife that I never would have known existed if it weren't for @Spirited Blades, and that's actually the same person as Spirited Whiskey, who's been a friend of the channel for a very long time. Please give @Spirited Blades a follow. This is his knife specific Instagram. It's because of people like him that I'm able to bring you guys daily knife content. It's also because of my generous patrons. Thanks so much for supporting me during this time. If you'd like to check out my Patreon, there's of course a link down in the description. The support would absolutely mean the world to me. So normally I do not do a review on a custom knife, because they are well outside of the price range that people can afford. They're often, you know, the quality is widely varying because of the handmade element, right? And then oftentimes, you know, there are more art elements than functional elements, right? However, this is a custom knife that is much more reasonable in terms of price, and it's also a design that screams function above anything else. I'm going to actually do a review on this knife because I want people to be aware of it. I'm going to tell you guys right now, this is a South African knife maker. You guys, I'm sure a lot of you are aware the quality that we're seeing from South African knife makers is just ridiculous. It is ridiculous, and this is a prime example of that. You can pick these up right now at Blade Gallery. They start at about $650. You have a bunch of different inlay options. This is Warthog Tusk. You have a lot of different, you know, exotic woods, things like that. But there's also carbon fiber, regular carbon fiber. There's marbled carbon fiber. There's there's red and black carbon fiber. There's twill, right? A bunch of different stuff. The reason I'm pointing that out right off the bat, number one, I have no affiliates program with Blade Gallery, which means I don't make any money. I'm telling you guys, that's where they are right now. If you are interested in spending money in this price range, you like custom knives, you know what to expect. This thing is insane for $650. It is incredible. That's where you can pick them up. Just wanted to let you guys know that you could do that right off the bat. Anyways, though, I am going to explain what it is that I love so much about this knife. Let's go ahead and get a measurement here. I'm going to try and maybe turn the exposure up just a tad. There we go. The reflectivity on this blade is really messing with my camera. So overall length of the Arno Bernard Orca is coming in at about 8.5 inches overall. Blade length is coming in at about 3.75, maybe a little longer in some places. Cutting edge is coming in at just a hair over 3. No, it's right at 3.5. Cutting edge is 3.5 inches. That's awesome. How about some size comparisons up against the Ontario Rats? Where's the Rat? There it is. The Ontario Rat Model 1. Rat 1 is coming in at 8.6 inches overall, so you can see there how similar we are in size to the Rat 1. How about up against the, sorry, I bumped the camera, Spyderco PM2. Spyderco PM2 is coming in at 8.3 inches overall. How about up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue? Ritter Hogue is coming in at 8 inches overall. Look at the blade grind similarities. It's its own thing, but it's kind of like Koenig Arius meets Ritter Hogue in profile. A lot of good there. A lot of good. Absolutely. How about up against the Spyderco Para 3? Spyderco Para 3 coming in at 7.25 inches overall. How's the action on this guy? Well, it is insane. This is a custom knife. This feels like something that, sorry, my finger got caught on the flipper tab there. But we are looking at essentially fall shut action that is absolutely frictionless. The knife does not have to be absolutely fall shut for me to consider it a quality action. I feel for friction, bumpiness, or inconsistency inside of the pivot, of which there is none on this knife. And it is basically fall shut on top of that. Now, the relationship between the flipper tab, the blade, and the detent is just perfect. This feels very, very much like the Koenig Arius in terms of like the flipping action and the quality of the flip. It's wonderful, and it makes an excellent sound. It just feels so nice, and there's no double clutch. It's so easy to manipulate. This is just a very, very pleasant experience. Honestly, this is an experience that feels like the ultra high end of production. Like if somebody had not told me that this was a custom knife, I'd be like, oh, this is like a, one of those knives that's just like perfectly executed by machine, and then they put an inlay in it that looks kind of more traditional, more, I guess, rustic outside, right? The Warthog tusk, right? The, antler or wood or whatever. No, this is a custom knife. That's crazy. I mean, I can't emphasize that enough, guys. It's just really, really wonderful. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check here. Get out my handy dandy WIA bit selector and WIA magnetic driver, 2 items that are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them down in the Amazon store that I reference at the beginning of every single video. Just open up the store and look for knife maintenance. We'll go ahead and get the T8 bit there because I believe this pivot is in fact a T8, and it is, absolutely. How about these handle screws back here? These are also, I want to make sure and get it right in there. Yeah, those are also T8s, and probably the same thing with the pocket clip. Yep. And also, fortunately, the exact same thing for the lock bar insert if you're the type of person who feels like they need to take that out and do maintenance on it, which you don't. But yeah, that's wonderful. Minimal hardware, 2 screws on the back, T8 on both sides of the pivot. No idea if it's free spinning. Worst case scenario, you just need 2 drivers. Wonderful. No issues there whatsoever. Let's go ahead and do thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. Spyderco Para 3, a little bit thinner. You can see this guy's got some excess thickness and some chamfering. This guy feels very similar to XM18 thickness, Koenig Arius thickness, right? It's kind of all. The reason I keep bringing these guys up is because Ryan, Spirited Blades, originally described this as a combination, the perfect combination of Koenig, Bill Koenig, Rick Hinderer, and Chris Reeve. The inlay work of Chris Reeve, the action and blade style of a Koenig Arius, the quality of action of Koenig Arius, and just that Rick Hinderer robustness, right? And the flipper tab is somewhat like a Hinderer. It's just without the imperfections in the hook. And he's exactly right. He's exactly right. It's those 3 makers combined into its own unique thing, right? So that's really, really cool. I really appreciate that. Let's go ahead and do carry profile up against the Spyderco Para 3 and PM2. 2 knives that have unquestionably awkward carry profiles that nobody ever seems to complain about. You can see there, we're a little tall here, especially in combination with the flipper tab. At maximum height, however, even including the flipper tab, we're maybe exactly the same height. The PM2 still appears to be taller at maximum height. Yeah, it's just ever so slightly taller. If you're used to carrying larger knives, this isn't something that's going to bother you. You can see there we're still coming in. Yeah, it's about the same handle length as the PM2, maybe a little bit shorter. It's definitely longer than the Para 3. And worst case scenario, it is the same height. Considering people don't have a problem with those 2 profiles, on those Spydercos, I wouldn't consider that an issue. We are looking at, actually here, let me move the scale so we can do the blade stock thickness measurement. I want to say we're looking at 155 to 160 thousandths on the stock thickness. Yeah, 155 to 160 thousandths there. Don't let that scare you. I can't wait to talk about the edge. The weight on this guy is going to be a little chunky considering on the inside here we do not have any milling. It is solid titanium. Considering it's an 8.5-inch knife, definitely a full-size knife, right? And the blade stock being what it is, we're coming in at about 5.61 ounces. This is full titanium, right? A full titanium XM18 at 8 1/4 weighs about 6 1/4 ounces, right? A standard XM18 that has G10 on one side comes in at about 5.25 to 5.4. So, is this a little bit heavy? Sure, it's going to be a little bit heavy to a lot of people. Is it crazy? Absolutely not. If you are regularly carrying a Spyderco Para 3 lightweight or bug out, and or you wear athletic shorts or skinny jeans on a daily basis, this isn't going to be for you. If you wear jeans and you carry a full-size knife and you're like me and you don't mind knives between the 4 and 6.5 ounce mark as long as they have a good carry profile, this isn't going to bother you at all. It's going to be wonderful. This falls right there into the realm of what I consider to be perfect for weight and carry profile, so it just doesn't bother me. All right, let's go ahead and talk about the anatomy here. So what we have on this guy is a bead blasted titanium frame, nice standard pivot, and then we have this beautiful inlay, and around the outside, you can see how they've set it in here is just perfect. We have consistency all the way around. Absolute consistency. It's very, very beautiful, and on both sides. It's just like Ryan said. It's the exact same inlay work that I see and expect from Chris Reeve, and that's wonderful. I don't like to see jaggedness or imperfections in gaps or anything like that. I want to see the same. If there is a shadow, right, I want to see the same shadow all the way around. And that's exactly what we've got going on here. What you're seeing there that looks like maybe jaggedness is just the contrast between the areas of the white and the areas of the brown up against the bead blasted titanium and the different types of shadows they create as I move this knife around. But they are not inconsistent gaps. It's the same thing all the way around with laser perfection. Wonderful. If it were me, I probably wouldn't go Warthog Tusk. Some people like that. If it were me, I'd go carbon fiber. I feel like this would just have a perfect aesthetic with a carbon fiber inlay on it, and I really, really like that. The overall fit and finish and execution of this knife on the outside are flawless. There's nothing here that's wonky or just slapped in place, right? No, it's all great. Some areas are a tad sharp on the outside of this flipper tab. You can see there, that's a little bit sharp. I'd really like to see that knocked down a little bit, but that's not that big of a deal. I regularly deal with an XM24 and XM8. I've handled a lot of XM18s, and even despite the chamfering that's going on there, it's just the shape of the flipper tab that actually creates for a less than pleasant experience, right? So what I'm saying is while this one might be a little bit sharp in the outside of the flipper tab, the jimping is fine to engage, but the landing zone is completely and totally smooth, and the shape of the flipper tab is good too. Now, because you do have some of that aggressiveness on either side of the flipper tab, where it really matters, I think, is during use right here. If you're wearing gloves, no big deal, but if you're barehanded, that is going to wear into your finger just a little bit, and this is a knife, considering the size and geometry of the blade, this is a knife that I would go out and use hard and consistently, right, for long periods of cutting. So that's one little tiny thing that I think bothers me just a little bit, but it is still very minor. What we can see here is the Arno Bernard logo on the blade. I think I would have liked to see that up here. I already know that this is the Orca, so I don't need to see the Orca right there. It's not really that big of a deal. It's just my own preferences, right? So Arno Bernard up here, and then M390 on the other side I think is just fine. Check out this high satin polish. This is really cool. So if I'm going to go satin, this is the type of satin that I like to see. That kind of, run-of-the-mill satin that we see on everything, right? Doesn't matter if you're looking at the PM2 or you're looking at the knives like the Praxis, and a lot of satin finishes that we see on like Riot knives or knives that are, much higher. Now, I understand that we're in like ultra high-end, mid-tech and custom territory in terms of the price, right? In fact, for a custom, it's an incredible price. We'll talk about that here in a sec, but if I'm not going to go mirror polish, but I still want, satin, this is the type of satin that I like to see. I really like that. It's very, very reflective. It is much more premium than the standard satin finish that you see on like everything nowadays. And I just really, really like it. It's so well done. I also like this area right here, this little notch. It does allow you to get your finger in there and do the reverse flick. It's a little bit sharp on the edges, but not that sharp. You can see it's catching my fingernails and throwing them all over the place. But I do appreciate that I have the option to do that, and it gives the blade some unique character. There is, of course, some jimping up here. It's very, very nice, easy to engage whether you're wearing gloves or not. The spine is crowned, which is an awesome little touch. Even though it does catch your fingernails, it's a little bit sharp right here, and even right here, starting about right there. It's just not that big of a deal. I'd like to see those knocked down, but this is a custom knife. If the blades are completely and totally hand ground, I don't know that I'm really going to fault them, because this blade, despite being 155 to 160 thousandths, oh my goodness, you guys, this is thin. This is a laser beam of an edge. Oh my goodness. I just thought, when Ryan was describing this to me, I was like, it'd have to be pretty aggressive. It'd have to be a pretty aggressive drop towards the edge. And the geometry would have to be, exactly. I was, in my mind, I just couldn't imagine, considering the other knives, that look to have a similar profile and a similar blade profile at the same thickness, right? I was like, how thin, really, is it really that? It's crazy thin behind the edge. This thing is a slicing machine. And in this case, you know, I don't know how they're heat treating their M390. I'm going to assume it's proper. But yeah, you're going to gain the benefit of that edge retention there. Now, if you're going to be constantly hammering this blade into, you know, shingles and staples and stuff like that, then yeah, it's not going to last very long. But man, talk about a box destroyer, or, you know, if you're cutting rope or just dense material for long periods of time, man, that blade is just going to be a lightsaber. It's just crazy. The geometry is awesome, and you have a full 3.5 inches of cutting edge with nothing in the cutting path except for this little thing up here, which, yeah, it's going to catch some stuff every now and then, but it's not going to slow you down too bad, or it really at all, and you can just clean it out at the end of the day. The edge is done absolutely flawlessly. There's no wonkiness or anything. It's very, very beautiful. You know, sticklers for quality are going to be very happy with that, so I have no issues. Like I said, inlays are beautiful. There is a place for a lanyard hole down here. We have a nice, kind of unexpected satin finished backspacer back here. This is also titanium. It is absolutely flush. I can't feel the transition between you know, the two different pieces of titanium here, so that's nice. It looks really, really great. I have no issues with that whatsoever. The pocket clip is a nice big thick piece of titanium that is also kind of satin finished and sort of matches the backspacer. I think the contrast is very nice. I don't know how I feel about it resting right on the lock bar. I kind of like it when it's more this way, but it's okay. And truthfully, it's not a hot spot at all, because all of this is so nicely knocked down. Everything, all the way around the pocket clip, it is absolutely, totally knocked down. There is no part of that pocket clip that is rough on the hand, and I appreciate that. I like the little split fuller that we've got going on. It's just another little detail in the pocket clip that looks nice. There is a steel lock bar insert that acts as the over travel stop, so that's nice. The knife locks up at, I'm going to guess, about 25% or so, and it is absolutely, completely, and totally centered. No blade play, up, down, left, or right. Runs on bearings, I'm sure I mentioned that. And then we have lots of shouldering there on that stop pin, so that's just wonderful. This is excellent. Well, so custom knives, you know, you have to imagine, you know, a lot of people are like, $650, oh my gosh, oh, that's way too, who would ever spend that? Every single video I've ever done, at least one person thinks that that the knife that I'm reviewing is overpriced. It doesn't matter if the knife is a $25 knife or if it's a $2,500 knife. Everybody has a different definition of value. Based on what I have handled, what I know about custom knives, mid-tech knives, custom tech, ultra high-end production, right? Whatever label, right? The more handwork that goes into a knife, the more time that goes into a knife, right? The more it's going to cost. Now, you know, everybody's time, you know, arguably is worth a different amount of money, but you add in, you know, shaping materials like this, and putting, you know, obviously Arno Bernard, and truthfully, guys, I'm going to say this, but I don't know this for a fact. I believe that his son or sons are now more involved and helping out with it, because he was, and I'm not an Arno Bernard, you know, aficionado, you know, I don't know, it's not like I know him and I've studied him, but he was traditionally, for a long time, like I thought that this was like a new guy. I was wrong. I talked with Ryan and Jim Skelton about this, and he's been making knives for a long time, mostly fixed blades. Only recently has he tiptoed into the folding knife world, and I say recently, I don't know how recently, and I believe his son or sons have actually kind of, you know, helped bring that to life here, right? Anyways, however much time and energy goes into it, the materials that are used, right? And then obviously the hands that are on this thing, from the raw materials to the form you're seeing now, those hands know what they're doing. It's one of those knives where I'm like, this is a custom? I always bring up that scene from Parks and Rec where Ron Swanson destroys his own chair, and they're like, what are you doing? And he said, he's making this chair by hand. And he said, that one was too perfect. It looked machine made. And it just cracked me up. But that's kind of what we've got going on here, right? I mean, it's so perfect that I would swear that this was made by machine, but it isn't. This is a custom knife. So while $650 is a lot of money, this is is about the best value full-size custom knife that I've ever seen, right? And a lot of people are like, you always say that this knife is the best blah, 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 blah you've ever seen. And we just heard you talk about the Shirogorov Quantum being the very, best knife here. So the Shirogorov Quantum is an ultra high-end production knife. We're talking about, the attention to fit and finish, considering the tier that it's in, right, where the manufacturer is located. It is what a lot of people would call a mid-tech knife. Mostly in terms of the action, I've never felt anything quite like that. So the Shirogorov is, in terms of the action, probably the best, feeling knife that I've ever felt. And I can understand how they got there, but this knife being made in a totally different place and is a full custom, right? The action's not quite as good as a Shiro, but it is still excellent. What I'm saying is considering what this is, what class of knife that it is in, it's amazing to me that it only costs $650. I've definitely handled knives well over $1,000 that do not feel this good and are using very similar materials, right? If you like Koenig's aesthetic, you like the idea of the action, if you've handled a Koenig and you enjoy the feeling of action there, you're also interested maybe in the legendary fit and finish of a Chris Reeve knife and kind of that robust workhorse feeling of a Hinderer knife, right? If that all appeals to you, yeah, here you go, because it's kind of in the same ballpark of price, especially if you're looking at a full tie Hinderer, right? Or you're looking at a Koenig Ares. Hey, you're looking at a Koenig Ares, you're already considering spending this much money. I'm not saying don't buy the Koenig and buy this. I mean, obviously buy what you want, but I kind of prefer the handle shape here of the Orca. Truthfully, this with carbon fiber, I don't know that I really have much to complain about. A little bit sharp on the flipper tab. I'd like to see that knock down some of the edges up here. Outside of that, though, maybe change the position of the pocket clip. We didn't really talk about that. They have actually opted to make this lanyard hole a priority over the pocket clip. I'd actually like to see the pocket clip come up here, make it a little more deep carry. We don't have a lot of knives sticking up out of the pocket. I'd say get rid of that lanyard hole completely and just get the pocket clip up there and kind of make it more like this. I don't know how much I enjoy the idea of it riding directly on the lock bar, but it's not that big of a deal. This knife is wonderful. There are very few things to nitpick here. This is just one of the highest quality custom knives that I've ever seen in this price range. I mean, it's shocking to me that you can pick this up for that much. Now, I think if these things, not that my channel has that much influence, but if more people start to experience this, it's going to be one of those knives where once they're gone, you're probably not going to see them a lot. So if you trust what I'm saying and you are, considering spending this much money anyway, head on over there to Blade Gallery and take a look at what they've got. These are really, really great, guys. This is going to be going on my custom knives playlist, and for one of the first times on the channel, it's also going to be going on my most recommended knives playlist. Normally, I don't do that. I like to keep the customs all in one place and just let people decide whether or not it's worth it to them. But yeah, this is, it is one of the most expensive knives I've ever put on my most recommended knives playlist, but it's got everything you want, and it's got an excellent design. Ergonomically, it's just wonderful. This thing is ready to go. Guys, I think that's going to be pretty much it for today's review. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.